Welcome to the Currency of Anarchy. I'm Josh Davis. This is a libertarian show about anarchy. And today with me I have Thomas Shane. And I just got to know you a few days ago. And yeah, we have a lot of similar opinions and that kind of thing. So can you tell a little about yourself, how you became an anarcho-capitalist?
Okay, how I became an anarcho-capitalist. I wasn't always, I was just an anarchist for a while. I didn't really have much of an opinion on economics, but to be honest, I wasn't really putting much thought into my philosophy. I just kind of, as a kid, about 14 or so, I started getting into a lot of punk music, and there is an underlying theme in there, individual freedom and just kind of saying fuck you to authority, and so that kind of turned me on to that whole idea. And then for a while I was just kind of not really politically aware. I knew I held kind of vague leftist ideas and ideologies, but I hadn't really put too much thought into it. And then about 2 years ago or so, I think it was, discovered Adam Kokesh or Stefan Molyneux, both around the same time. I don't recall which one was first, but that's what really opened my eyes and got me kind of back into the anarchist ideology, and specifically anarcho-capitalism and free market anarchy. Because to me, and to a lot of people, that's the most logical and almost the only logical and true form of anarchy, because you can't have individual freedom in an anarchist society yet be dictating how others can trade goods and services with one another. So
right.
That and reading Chaos Theory by Robert Murphy. I don't know if you're familiar with that book.
Yep.
It's his 2 essays or whatever about free market anarchy, and that. So Molyneux and Kokesh and Murphy, I would say, got me to where I am today. And then I just kind of educated myself and honed it a little bit, and now here I am.
Yeah, one moment, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I kind of agree with you. Like, what got me into it is I was getting out of college, I found a job, and the job that I was, the place I was working for, it really didn't fit with the values that I had. You know, it was a defense contractor, and that was, I started thinking about, the truth of everything in 2008. We had that bailout thing and whatever, and that really triggered something, in my brain. I'm like, the Obama and McCain were running at the same time, and they both were lying to everybody, like they go back to vote. And, oh yeah, we're not going to bail them out. And they both voted for the bailout. It was absolutely mind-blowing, you know what I mean? I'm like, and then, yeah, right, it is, yeah. And so then I started thinking, well, I've heard of like other political parties. So I started looking at the Green Party and the Libertarian Party. I ended up with the Libertarian Party, hearing Ron Paul and all this stuff. And then over time, you hear Stefan Molyneux's name. I'm like, it's a mind blow. Once you hear what he's saying, it's like, oh,
Like, that makes so much sense. Why am I just now hearing this?
Right. But at the same time, I grew up with certain values, so you knew that, liberty was important. Like this country was theoretically bred on liberty, and so I had those values already inside of me. It's just it had to come back out, you know what I mean?
It was founded essentially by libertarians, if you think about it.
Yes.
The idea of a big government for protection of property and collective defense, and that was about it.
Right, but at the same time, that's a contradiction. So that's where you and I ended up, as anarcho-capitalists, I think. So that's interesting.
I never really had a Democrat or Republican phase, and I didn't really do the libertarian phase either. I just kind of went straight to anarchy.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Like, I find it amazing. Like, you said you're in high school right now, right?
No, I'm 24.
You're 24. Oh, it must have been. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting you two mixed up.
Sorry.
So, yeah, 24. That's impressive. That's really impressive. You know, like, because it, you know, just a couple years ago, I'm like, I finally succumbed to the obvious, you know, anarchy's the only solution. You know, it's really funny.
Yeah.
You know how people, you know, Jason is who we're talking about. Is someone who couldn't be here today, but he's in high school and he came to the same conclusions. It's great, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That gives me hope for people.
It is, yeah.
And 2 years ago, I was 22 years old and I was politically unaware and had no idea what was going on, didn't really care.
Right.
I'm glad that people are waking up that early and figuring out. I have a couple friends on Facebook that are in high school that are pretty devout anarchists, so, and they're logical about it. They're not just emotional anarchists, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's not like, oh, you know, capitalism sucks. You know, so we got to tell people how to live.
Yeah. I'm an anarchist, but I don't want you to be able to sell your labor voluntarily or exchange goods and services with one another.
Yeah, and if you think about it, you know, ideas are capital. You know, so you can't tell people what to think, but that's what they would be doing. You know, you can't exchange ideas. You know, it's totally contradictory.
It's force and coercion right there.
Bam, right from the start.
Coercion.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about the differences or the similarities between Minarchy and Anarchy first. I mean, we kind of already have been touching upon these ideas, but I assume that you had something you wanted to go over specific with this, or should I just spit some, you know, something at you and you respond?
Oh, it's your show, man. You can do whatever. I just compiled some notes on the topics that you gave me, so I just got, you know, a little bit of my own personal opinion and facts about it and whatnot. So yeah, we can do whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I do.
I'd like to be talking about how we felt about it, about anarchy versus minarchy.
Kind of both, I think, because it's a very broad subject, and you know, it's all important in my opinion. Like you were saying, this country was founded on libertarian principles, but it's still a state. And but you know, I love the Declaration of Independence. It's you know, the first two sentences kind of say it all. You know, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the clauses which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Bam! People don't talk like that anymore. Why the heck not? I enjoy those two sentences, and they're kind of run-ons, but they're succinct.
Back then, though, I mean, they were, people say that they were as smart back then as we are now, but it seems like they just spoke more eloquently and just were so much more pronounced and just very philosophical in what they were saying.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate that.
Yeah, right.
I'm not a constitutionalist or anything, but I can appreciate the sentiment of what they were saying.
Absolutely.
And what they were looking to accomplish.
Yeah.
So that was essentially minarchist, right? Minarchy and libertarian are not far from each other, right? It's essentially the same principles.
I think that libertarianism is just these principles, you know, the logic, you know, trying to, you know, codify nature's law. You know what I mean? That's where I'm coming from to a degree, you know, like it's about nature, it's about respecting liberty, you know? And so ANCAP and, you know, Minarchy, they're so similar, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So just we should probably elaborate on libertarian and minarchy and what their ideal role of government is. So
Yeah.
I do that. You want to do that? You want me to do that, or?
Go ahead, feel free.
What I got is that minarchy and libertarianism is they believe that government exists for the minimal purposes of protecting people, protecting your property, including yourself. So essentially protecting you from acts of aggression, theft, fraud, coercion, and then the collective defense of the nation, the commune, what have you. So that's basically what police, military, the court system, the judicial system, that's basically it, right?
That would be a very good description of minarchy, because my thing is libertarianism is just the acknowledgement that we have liberty through our life. At least that's where I'm coming from, because
Yeah.
I still consider myself a libertarian. You know what I mean?
That's more philosophical sense of it. Okay.
Yeah, and the minarchy is just the, how we actually make it work or something. You know what I'm saying? Or at least that's where I'm coming
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I definitely agree with that. I believe that human beings are inherently born to be free, born to be individuals, to be who they are, and then not, as long as they're not infringing upon others or being aggressive towards other people, live and let live is my philosophy.
Right.
Government isn't exactly compatible with that.
You're right, yes, because it's the exact opposite. It is the initiation of the use of force.
Yeah.
Right.
And my problem with limited government is that limited government doesn't stay limited for long.
Right.
I mean, if you think about it, as we were just talking about, when this country was founded on basically a minarchist idea of government, look what it's turned into now.
Right.
It's the massive, overreaching, non-transparent, just monster of a government that you see before you today, and it's transformed from limited government and personal freedom and all that good stuff into the full-blown statism that we just enjoy every day here.
Right. Yeah, and it's all by design, because there's a couple of political parties and they keep on growing the state together because they want to control the other people. You can't control another person. It's impossible.
It's immoral.
Right.
It's flat out immoral.
Right.
And yeah, so the limited government doesn't stay limited, and my philosophy behind that is whenever you give a small group of people an institution of centralized authority, it's only a matter of time before it breeds corruption, it breeds collusion, and it breeds control. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
99.9% of the time.
Right.
I don't know exactly why, but if you look at history and study history and government throughout man, it always ends up about control. And that's why I don't support the idea of minarchy personally as an individual, because I reject government in all its forms. Government, collectivism, any form of individual control, or where there's a potential for individual control, I just reject that.
Right. Like, if you have a small group of idiots, because some people believe that, just people are idiots. If you have a small group of idiots controlling a larger group of idiots, you're going to get, stupid. But, most men are good, and they stay in the market because they know the value of themselves, so
Yeah.
they stay in the market because they want to improve their lives. And the worst people go to government because they can't exist in the market.
Exactly. People say that's a statist argument against anarchy, they think, is that man is inherently evil and incapable of governing himself. And they don't realize that that's actually an argument for anarchy, because so if men are inherently evil and can't govern themselves, why do you give a small group of them control and the transparency to govern other people?
Right.
And then expect them to do good things with it. I just think it's unnecessary, because even in the most basic limited form of government, any service that they're going to provide you could be easily provided by a free market. There's so many alternatives that are going to be more efficient and not carry that risk of the expansion of power and corruption and collusion.
Yeah, and people are noticing that with the post office, especially lately. You know,
Yeah.
UPS, FedEx, they're doing so much better. You know, all of these services, and that's the whole thing. They have a monopoly on letter carrying, and that's
Yeah.
it. You know, so that's the only reason why they exist, is the monopoly itself.
They're a joke compared to the private-owned companies. Their tracking system, all that, it's just...
Yeah.
I mean, if you even go into a post office and just look around and look at how outdated everything is and how old everything is, and that it's just not modernized at all, and it's just inefficient, and that's basically a common theme among government-run programs. They're old and inefficient.
Right.
Government itself is an old, outdated idea, and it's inefficient.
Right.
We're in human history right now with the internet, the information age, crowdsourcing. We can operate this without government.
Right.
Without being sad.
Yeah, like the idea in republicanism or minarchy or whatever is that, you know, like it can keep itself small, but as you congregate power, it's just going to keep on absorbing more power, and you know, it's just validated, you know, by, you know, these parties, and that's it.
I believe that's a fallacy that government will limit itself and keep itself small and police itself. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked before. Why would it now?
Right. So, what else? Now let's try to compare this with communism, which is, you know, it's just a greater. Actually, it's supposed to be more economic, you know, instead of talking about the social aspects. So communism versus capitalism is more correct, but at the same time, it is still anarchy versus government. You know, it really does sound nice until you pull back the you know, the scales or whatever.
Yeah.
So can you talk about communism and how that's different from minarchism, I guess?
I can talk about communism all day, man. You know, it's essentially just another form of statism. It's just giving the power to somebody else. That's all it is. So what you said, communism is more of a, just in case people aren't aware, anarchy, the idea of an anarcho-communist, first of all, is a contradiction in and of itself, because communism isn't anarchy. It's not stateless society, it's a classless society. Right. Which basically means that everyone's low class, everyone's equally poor. And in my opinion, communism is a non-economic system. There is no economic system to it, because economics is a study of private property and how it's exchanged between individuals. In communism, when you don't believe in private property, you have no transfer of private property among individuals. You have no economy. You have a centrally planned economy, which historically, if you look at examples of communist Russia, communist China, all that, free market economies function and flourish much better than state-controlled economies or centrally planned economies. They just don't work. You just look at the data. It's been tried and tried and tried, and that's what baffles me so much, the fact that people think that communism, or statism for that matter, can work, because how many times do we need to go through the same thing with having the same thing keep happening before people catch on that it doesn't work, that it results in genocide and it results in the corruption and the collusion of collectivism. I don't agree with collectivism in any form. I'm an individualist through and through. I believe in individual freedom. And that's why I don't support things like communism and socialism, because to the extent that it negates the individual, you no longer have a say. Your preferences don't matter because they're going to be overshadowed by the collective will. Right. Another problem that I have with communism is that their idea of public property. That there is no private property, it's all public property. There's no such thing as public property, because the public or society is not an individual, it's an idea. And ideas can't own property, only individuals can own property. So by saying public property, I believe that's propaganda. Collectivism in general is propaganda, in my opinion, to get people on board with this inherently authoritarian system in which certain people own property, whoever that may be, the state, the administrators, whoever's been put in charge, whoever has the most influence, the loudest voice, the strongest fist, however they determine that, they're the ones who actually gain ownership of all that property, and then they pass it off as public property, when in reality there's no such thing. It can't exist.
Right. Because someone has to lay down the rules. Property does mean exclusive use. And
yes.
So one person, has to lay down the rules for that property, whatever it is. And it ends up being some guy on high, like the executive branch or something. So someone is making the rules for it. It may not be you, it may not be your Congress, quote unquote, so yeah, someone owns it.
Ayn Rand said that there's no difference between communism and socialism.
Right.
There's a very, very small difference, she said, actually. Communism is the enslavement of man through force, and socialism through foe. It's the difference between murder and suicide. There's no such thing as public property. There is no society. There is no us or we. That's all an idea. It's an idea based around individuals in a geographical area, assuming some sort of social order. But yeah, there's no such thing as public property, and that's one of the biggest contradictions for communism, and the fact that they believe that what do they say? Property ownership is derived from need. Who needs it most?
Right.
Need or necessity is relative. That's not a definitive term. So basically, I could say, well, I need this, therefore I can steal it from somebody, though I can't technically steal anything because you don't own it and I don't own it. So they believe that equality, the key to prosperity is equality and property ownership. How can you have equal ownership of property that you don't believe in?
Right.
I mean, the more you look into communism, the more it just unravels as a series of just contradictory ideologies. And I think it's all just propaganda in my mind. It might as well be statism. It's just another form of, it's collectivism. And in my mind, collectivism, government, that's the problem. Man trying to control man is the problem.
Right. Yeah, my thing is, nobody has the right to control another person, but nobody has the right either to control, even we as humans kind of understand instinctually that we shouldn't be controlling, animals or controlling, like through force, So, like we respect, their property, and you don't even need to know that that's what you're doing, but we know it. It's moral to respect.
It's intrinsic, yeah.
Yeah. Because because we wouldn't want it done to ourselves, in that sense. But the twisted minds of communists, definitely, they're twisted. That's all I'm saying.
I don't understand how they logically accept any of this and believe it to be a good idea. I mean, there's nothing moral about using force on people. It's not moral. It doesn't matter what ends you're trying to achieve. The use of force on other people is immoral. The initiation of force on others is immoral, I should say, not the use. I believe in self-defense. Right. I adhere to the NAP. I'm a strong believer in that. But any system of authoritarian collectivism is going to rely on violence and force to gain compliance, because not 100% of the people are going to be on board with what's happening. But in a collective, that doesn't matter, because as long as it's the collective will, as long as most of us agree on this as a good idea, whether or not you agree with it as an individual is irrelevant, because if you don't agree with it, you can just be forced to agree with it. And one of the things that just kind of annoys me the most about it, especially with interacting with anarcho-communists, which I try not to do very often because it's an infuriating thing, but in a capitalist society, in a free market society, they could have their communist societies, they could have socialist societies, they could go off in one area and do whatever they want to do and leave us out of it. It wouldn't work vice versa. In a communist society, you couldn't have a free market. So there's once again, it's inherently authoritarian. They want everybody to go along with it, or there's no other options for you.
I'm still not buying that though. This is one area that I usually can't accept because it's still the initiation of the use of force. Others will see this society and see the contradictions. When you're an individualist, you'll see the contradictions. Yeah. So you'll shun that whole group. You're going to shun it. So I'm not sure how long that society would actually be viable.
That's true. I mean, I wouldn't personally, you're right, I probably would shun it, or at least I wouldn't want to interact with them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a problem with it as long as everyone was there voluntarily. But you're right, because it's hard to live it's hard to live in exile and go have your own commune out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's been done, but sooner or later you're going to have to interact with others. You're going to have to utilize, unless they're growing all of their own food, making all of their own clothes, producing everything that they're using from raw materials that they've grown and harvested, sooner or later they're going to have to utilize the market.
Yeah, because, good example, everybody leaves Cuba. Everybody leaves Russia. They want freedom. They want their life. They want their ideas. So it just doesn't work.
No. I mean, well, Ayn Rand, she was from Russia, right? And I think she came to absolutely disparage communism and collectivism because she experienced firsthand what it does and how it negates the individual and just has no regard for individual preference or liberty. And that's my main thing. As I said, I'm an individualist through and through. That's my number one thing. It's individual freedom and voluntary society based on free association and personal responsibility. Individual freedom for everyone. I don't want anybody's liberties as an individual infringed upon just because some of us think that something is a good idea.
Right. I think there's something I want to skip over first. I'm going to point you so you can see the screen for a moment. I want to know if you'd agree with this. Do you agree with this? No, I'm kidding. Do you agree with this? This is what I tried to do is a logical proof of liberty. And I'm trying to take the ideas from Stefan Molyneux, who, tries to prove morality or try to prove universally preferable behavior.
Yeah.
And, so objectively, So this is my objective here. The premise is life. We all have life. I exist, therefore, because I can say that I exist, I have a life. You know what I mean? And yeah, that's basically it. And through my life come my ideas, and this is kind of a circular logic, I guess, but life and ideas kind of coincide. And in my body, I have my ideas, I have my mind, so therefore all of this is kind of my property, kind of by extension, because I have the exclusive use of my hands, my ideas, my body, so these are all my property. And in that I'm able to trade ideas, I'm able to trade other things, so that's property. And that's where rights come from, is through your life itself. I'm not sure if you accept this, but I'm curious.
I agree with the body part. Your property is your body, things that you've gained legitimate ownership of, right? Either through producing it, you've produced it yourself, like the product of your labor, or homesteading. I believe in that. What I don't believe in intellectual property. I don't believe that you can own ideas. If you want to own your ideas, you can either keep them to yourself, or you can voluntarily trade those with people trading ideas. We're trading ideas right now.
That's it. Yeah.
I don't think that you can actually own an idea once it leaves your mouth. it's out there. So I don't.
Well,
yeah,
it's
I just
still
don't-
up here though. But yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but yeah, but
Free markets don't believe in intellectual property, and I don't believe in patents either. I think it's not real. It's an idea.
that's true.
I kind of believe that property needs to be tangible.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, all it is, property is defined as exclusive use, and that's all it is. But these, your liberty, in order to trade property, you need rights and all this other stuff. But it all coincides. Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think intellectual property and patents kind of are counterproductive to a functioning economy. Because if you hold a patent on something, basically you're saying that I've developed this is mine. If I say that people can use it, I dictate the terms to which you can use it. But that basically means that no one else can come along. If you develop something for that's technology or medicine or something, somebody else wants to come and expand on that, they can't. Because if you own the patent on it, they can't build anything like that.
Yeah.
They can't take your idea and expand on it. So it hinders growth. It hinders economic growth. It hinders technological and medicine advancements. So that's just my take on it, though.
Right, but people know how to build a house. You know, that's all up here. You know, the tangible asset exists. You know, and that is yours. But I believe if you put enough security around your software type thing, then you're able to better protect it. But people still see it, so they can work on it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Interesting concept. I love this stuff. Okay, so we've basically gone over Minarchy and Anarchy. You know, the differences in that. We've gone over communism versus capitalism, basically, and how that relates to anarchy. And next, I would say, how would, like, we're talking about anarchy, how would law actually be applied in anarchy? So, you know, a lot of ideas are floating around like this, and, you know, there would be competitions between different arbiters, like DROs or whatever you want to call them. It's all the same idea to me. Yeah, right. And so, but they'd all operate similarly in that it's just contract law. You know, there are no positive laws. You wouldn't have a system at all. There is no system. So it's just agreements between one person and another. There's really not much for me to say about it because that's it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Law, I don't believe in law. As Molyneux said, law is just somebody's opinion with a gun behind it.
Right,
So.
but that means law would exist in anarchy as well, in that sense. Because what I'm talking about is that there's a difference between law and legislature. You know,
okay.
or legislation.
Legality versus law, like scientific law.
Yeah, natural law. Yeah.
That's essentially the NAP then. I mean, I guess I would
That's it.
expect people to conduct themselves according to the non-aggression principle. Don't initiate force on others. Don't coerce. Don't fraud. Don't defraud people. Just based on, I think morality and first principles are the most important aspect of that. Obviously, you can't expect everybody to operate by their own moral code, and obviously there are immoral people out there who do immoral things. That's something that we would just have to deal with when the time came through the non-aggression principle. And somebody initiates force on you, you defend yourself. If someone tries to harm you or your property, you defend yourself. And then like Robert Murphy in Chaos Theory, I like his idea of the DROs and the insurance companies, where you take out the insurance policy on yourself and it covers you for liabilities if you steal, if you defraud someone, it covers you. They pay that off, you end up having to pay them back, just like car insurance, health insurance. But if you don't carry an insurance policy, basically you would face social and occupational ostracism. No one would want to deal with you. No one would want to hire you. No one would want you in their job, in their place of business or their home, because they know that there's nothing holding you accountable for your actions if you steal from them.
That's an interesting point. I have heard an argument about insurance being impossible, in that your responsibility level, drops a little bit, because the responsibility would lie upon the company. Like if I were to get in a car crash and I didn't have the insurance, then the responsibility would fall to me, obviously. But if I do have insurance, then my responsibility level actually drops down, because I have an insurance policy and they're going to take care of me. Almost like the state, as it were. But I feel like that's not true, because you have to pay the insurance company all the time.
Yeah, your premiums would go up.
Right. That's an interesting concept. I've never really looked into it, but it's been put to me pretty recently.
Yeah, well, I've just read Chaos Theory again recently, so it's fresh in my mind again. But yeah, it's the fact that if you didn't have insurance on yourself, you would be making everything so much harder on yourself to be a functioning member of society, because like I said, no one would want to deal with you, because they could say, well, you came into my store and you damaged this, therefore, the arbiters are going to enforce this fine on you. There's nothing stopping you from just saying no, because they're not going to if they initiate force on you to get that money from you, isn't that technically a violation of the NAP? You can defend yourself.
Right.
So you would just be ostracized. Why would anybody want to voluntarily ostracize themselves? Just so they could go around and do douchebag things,
Right. Yeah, and that's exactly how murder would be taken care of. Like, if or one way to deal with a murderer is to ostracize them. A couple ways to deal with that too, and we don't know how it'll work yet. That's the whole point of it, though, is we don't know how it will work until we get there. Yeah. I cannot wait.
I hope we see it in our lifetime. I not to be a pessimist or anything, I think it's unlikely, but I'm about passing on the knowledge to my child, to other people, sharing ideas, just getting it through the grapevine and expanding this idea so that one day people somewhere can be free.
That's right. I feel like it will happen, actually, because over the course of time, liberty has been coming about. This country technically is a good example, even though it's also the worst example. But maybe it's the best example anyway, because we see how Minarchy can't work as well. I love that. Liberty's happening. It's happening, I swear.
We're in an awakening period. It's the information age. The internet, people are sharing ideas with each other, and it's growing faster than the government can suppress it. And I love that.
Yeah. I find it funny. I've heard a rumor, and I still don't buy it yet, but the post office itself has bought ammunition to possibly defend itself. That's what I'm guessing, but it could be something else too. But it's a rumor, and I hate these rumors because you don't know. You just don't know. Because I don't know what to believe. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing I think a lot of minarchists fall for, is a lot of fear mongering and scare stories, and say you need government because the gangs will take over and there'll be a mafia style state going on and they'll be extorting you via cruise missile and this and that, and it's just fear mongering and scare stories. And the fact is, if you're afraid of gang warfare and the mafia taking control, why would you want the largest mafia there is, the largest organized crime family there is?
Right.
So you just get it out of the way and just give all the power to them right away and spare yourself, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's it. That's the state. That's the state, is fear. Yeah, that's all I was going to say.
Fear.
Yeah. So that's why you try to look through the emotion and go to the logic, and that's how you and I came to be who we are. My guess, it's all logic.
Put the emotions aside and look at the logical facts of how things are. Study history.
Yeah. Yeah.
Important. It's an exciting time to be alive, especially to be an anarchist or to be in the liberty movement whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's really exciting and big things are happening.
I love it. So I've got one more major topic, and it's a kind of a mind blow. But I kind of had been talking about this. I believe I talked about this on the last show. Can corporations actually exist in freedom? Can it exist? Because my thing is, governments, they create a fictional person. And
Legal person.
yeah, a legal person. Yeah, exactly. It's a legal fiction. And so through that, corporations have rights, have property, have assets, everything. And they technically, it doesn't make its own decisions. It does it by directors. And so I feel like there's a logical contradiction here. But I also feel like, well, I'm not the only person who says this, but I feel like not a lot of anarchists really get this. You know, they're like, down with corporations, down with government, and then we're going to set up our own again. But do they really know what they're doing? They're against corporations, they're against capitalism, but they don't know the difference.
Corporations are not capitalism. That's what they don't understand. And no, I don't. Obviously, corporations, by their very definition, would not exist without government because they're created through government legislation. No government, there's no such legislation. Their legal personhood grants them essentially all the rights of an individual without any of the responsibilities or liabilities, which is very dangerous because that's how corporatism comes about. I just watched a video earlier today, from a professor at the von Mises Institute who was comparing corporatism to capitalism. And he was saying that corporatism is essentially fascism. It's the economic system of fascism. So when you have all the legal rights of an individual as a legal person and none of the responsibilities, that's really, really bad because that essentially gives people within that are operating that corporation, they're real individuals in that corporation, gives them a blank check to operate with impunity, to do whatever they want to do, whatever they have to do to get ahead, to buy and sell legislation, to buy congressmen, and no one's going to hold them responsible because you can't put a corporation in jail. You can't imprison a corporation. So no, without the state, there would be no such legislation, and not holding. I think that it's important for people to understand that companies are essentially what separates a company from a corporation is the legislation. Companies are still responsible for their actions, and I think that's a really good thing because without that legislation protecting them from criminal liability, financial liability to creditors, what have you, without that blanket of protectionism guarding them from that, it might create a little more incentive for them to act more responsibly, more financially responsibly, socially responsibly, because they know they'll be held accountable. I think one of the worst things that you can do is take away accountability for someone's actions because it's not going to go well. It's going to go well for them. It's not going to go well for anybody else. So yeah, it's important for people to understand that corporations don't exist without government. And I really wish people would stop blaming capitalism for the problems of corporatism because it's not the same thing. And capitalism doesn't give way to corporatism like some of them say. It's the other way around. The state gives way to corporatism.
Right. A lot of communists don't like currency itself, and they are scared of it. I don't know why anybody would ever fear an object. I understand fearing fiat currency because that's basically blood money. You're talking about, murder and theft by the government, and you don't want to support that. I highly recommend getting out of that system if you can. But you know, to fear Bitcoin or to fear gold itself, to fear silver. Gold and silver, to me, it's natural. It's elemental. It comes from your earth, and everyone loves the earth, I should hope. And Bitcoin, it's just two guys, you know, came up with this idea at a computer, created a new currency that everybody accepts.
Yeah, as long as everybody accepts it, that's all that matters.
Right. Yeah, that's what a currency is. Yeah, exactly. It's just a trade. So there's nothing to fear about that.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I'm going to end the show with a couple of pictures. Hold on a minute. Yeah, here we go. Take a look at this. This says no housework, no shopping, no banking, no school, and no work. And this was posted recently by somebody, and this was an Ancom, yes.
That's what
I think it's funny because no housework means you don't own your house. No shopping means no shopping means that you're not buying new things. What's wrong with that? You know, no banking means you don't own your money. No school means you're not educating yourself. How stupid is that? No work means you are not productive. And you say you want to control people so you can actually get some things done as a society. I find that hilarious. And that is a strike for today. I love that. Anyway, here's another one. What if, I love this one. What if I told you that both political parties work for the same corporations? I think that was great because the Matrix really, I didn't really even get that now that I think about it. They were both the blue pill and the red pill. I never really got that. That's hilarious. Anyway, they're in the wrong hands, by the way, but that's okay.
I think the Matrix was a metaphor for government, for the state,
absolutely,
for social consciousness.
Yeah.
What doesn't make sense about that first picture is that communists aren't anti-work. They're very, very pro-work. What they're anti is they're anti-laziness. They're anti-people not contributing. So how do you not buy anything? You don't do any work. How do you, no survival? You don't survive. You starve to death.
It's hilarious.
Great system.
Yeah, that means death. That literally means non-existence. That's what that means. I love that. Yeah, you're right. The Matrix was a great metaphor, and what I think is we make the machines, and the machines control us. And if you pull that apart, it means we make the state, and the state controls us.
Yeah.
That is the greatest metaphor ever. I don't know if you've ever checked out V for Vendetta. Great.
Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was great, Thomas. Great to meet you. I appreciate you coming on the show and exploring these ideas with me. And hopefully I'll have you on in the next couple weeks or something. Maybe we can do this again if you'd be interested.
Yeah. Anytime, man. Anytime you want me to come on, I'd be more than happy to.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Thomas Chain, everybody. Woo! All right, stay on, and I'll finish this up. Information is the currency of democracy, Thomas Jefferson once said that. It is incorrect. Information is the currency of anarchy. Okay, take it easy, everybody.